Hear some protesting in the background. Is that protests about Ukraine, and how, in general, has Joe Biden's handling of this crisis been received?
You're absolutely right, Ciara. It is a complaint about America's relatively hands-off approach to the Ukrainian crisis. I'm going to step back for just a moment, and hopefully my cameraman Mark will be able to show you a little bit of what's going on. You should be able to pick out a handful of blue and yellow Ukrainian flags from a crowd of maybe close to 100 people who are dotted around the front of the White House, all chanting various slogans demanding more American action, including, in particular, the one refrain that you hear over and over again is demanding that Joe Biden help Ukraine protect its own airspace. Now, that has to be said, that is not an argument which is getting too warm a reception here in Washington, because many people, either red or blue here in the United States, would see the idea of America or NATO stepping in to defend Ukrainian airspace as basically requiring NATO air forces then to shoot down any Russian aircraft that were flying over Ukraine, and that in itself then could be an escalation into a full-blown war between Russia and NATO, which is not what they want. It has to be said, Ciara, that when you are here and when you see a lot more of the discussion about Ukraine, and it is everywhere. It's on the front pages of all the newspapers, it's all the talk radio, it's all the cable news channels. It is wall-to-wall discussion around what's going on in Ukraine. But it is a little bit more abstract. We get used to the coverage at home of talking about a war on our own continent, a humanitarian crisis taking place on our own continent, and the resulting numbers of tens of thousands of people going to be coming to our own countries. That is an aspect of the discussion which you don't get over here. It is more of a concern around Russian aggression and the role of NATO, but you don't get that sense of immediacy. There is a little bit more of a hands-off attitude, and that is why you end up having protests like this one right now, where people are demanding that America do a little bit more, but it doesn't just have that same level of urgency or immediacy, or it just doesn't feel like it's in their neighbourhood the same way as it does when we're talking about it at home, given that it is a war that's ongoing in our continent.
So what do you expect then Micháel Martin is going to be saying to Joe Biden when they have their meeting on Thursday? I take it Ukraine is going to dominate that conversation.
It's definitely going to dominate the conversation. In fact, when the White House put out an official statement last night confirming to the American media that Micháel Martin was going to be coming over for his meeting in the Oval Office on Thursday, it specifically said that the issues in Ukraine were going to be top of the agenda. And part of the reason why they think that Ireland may have a role to play in that is because Ireland, as we know, is currently a member of the United Nations Security Council, and they see Ireland as being a little bit more of an active player or an active voice on the world stage as far as that goes. Now, that in turn may constrain Ireland's ability to come over here with a shopping list that it may have done in the past. You would regularly have Taoiseach coming over here, sitting down with presidents and asking for there to be some progress on legalising the 50,000 undocumented Irish living in the United States, and there might be discussions around corporate tax or transatlantic investment and all the likes. All of that will have to take a little bit of a back seat, because clearly America wants to discuss Ukraine first and foremost, whether it is Ireland's role on the Security Council, Ireland's role in the EU, Ireland's role as a global headquarters for aircraft leasing and some of the consequences that may have, indeed the role of the IFSC in facilitating some Russian bankrolling of oligarchs and their companies and the like. The US clearly thinks that Ireland has some role to play in that, so this isn't going to be one of the Patrick's Days where Ireland comes over as a transatlantic novelty to come over and shake hands and shake shamrocks. This is going to be one of those cases where Ireland comes over and is actually something of a global player, which is maybe in its own way a little bit of a compliment about how much of an influential voice Ireland has become on the world stage in the last few years.